Okay, so here we are playing Liberia Descent into Hell. It's the second turn. Went to the Rebel Player Random Events phase. Rolled a 31 on the dice. Comes out to Mooney Mahogany. The Reverend Moon makes a deal to clear-cut liberation in rainforests. Roll a die to determine randomly whether Mahogany Harvest is in, and they give a list of provinces or districts. If a player controls the winning district, that player gets a d6. Well, it ended up showing up here. Now, I don't know what control means. Control of a district. There are counters enough to indicate that, but the reality here, let's say it ended up here. Now here it's clearly government. It's a government-controlled county, as well as an area where the government has the military. So there's no question I'm going to give them some cash, a d6 worth. They get a buck off of that, which isn't going to help much, but whatever. But if it had been here, it would have been much, much tougher, because there's no definition in the game of controlling a district. You control a county or not. And again, there's a lot of things I'm suspecting in this game that don't quite mesh together. Like, it hasn't gone through really any blind testing or the kind of editing that I would expect something to go through. Now, you're getting a lot of game for something that's termed as a mini game, in terms of a lot of charts, a lot of rules, a lot of different little random chromey type things that all fit together. So maybe what they cut back on outside of the map and maybe the counters is they cut back on not paying a lot of time really making sure that they put out a finished and polished product. I can understand that to some extent, and I don't mind it much, but I can see some people really being disturbed by it. Go to the peacekeeping. Well, let's roll some things. The peace talks, maybe they go forward. And they do. Freetown, Sierra Leone, deploy U.S. forces. Rule 11.7, rebel player gets one transvestite. So that's how transvestites show up. So we give one to the rebel, and what did I say? 11.7 U.S. forces. Well, that happened quicker than I expected. In terms of, I just didn't know the game well enough. Well, that's obviously not the right rule, because there is no 11.7. We'll look at maybe U.S. Marines, which is 15.5, and one U.S. Marine in each government-controlled Monrovia box. Well, that's not a lot right now. So this was a major thing, perhaps, that the rebels marched into Monrovia. Of course, now they're cut off. They're in supply because Monrovia has factories, but they're not with the rest of the forces. And how are they going to work? We didn't really look at it. They're pro-government. They cannot be attacked by the rebels. So the rebels are going to be stuck here in the capital. The government player may at any time order the withdrawal of the Marines. Okay. It doesn't say whether or not you can move into them, but I think you can. Not with the rebels, but with the government forces. So why would I remove them? I don't rightly know. It's just not clear, but the U.S. have pretty much sealed off Monrovia, which is something, if you knew the game well, you probably wouldn't do the move that I made with the rebel faction. But we'll see how it all turns out. Okay, a die to replace the Eekmog commander. That doesn't happen because he's not on the board. We don't have to worry about them. Which player has initiative? All right, well, that's on Juju alone, and that's clearly the rebel. And then I'm going to bid the hostages and Zoes and see how that works out. So the bidding on hostages and Zoes went through. Because the rebels got first bid, they bid one on hostages. The government went up to 2. Nobody was willing to go higher. And they only took 1. The rebels didn't take any. On Zoes, the rebels went to 1. This is in Juju. The government was unwilling to bid anything, and the rebels went and made sure they bought 7 of them, which means that their existing stacks would have the lead in Zoe against anything new, and the government did not pay any Juju on that. Okay, we go to the political phase. There's no Gondor status, no the influence of donors. So I'm going to come back after doing that and see what happens. I've got to start keeping track of who bought what. Last turn, all we had, the only one that was influenced, were the drugs. We'll see if other things do, because they all get an extra die now, and so they kind of get a bonus for being taken. Okay, so after the intervention phase, what we saw here is, and I haven't added points yet, because only drugs were used, some others looked valuable. So the rebels went for prostitutes and rolled 2 dice, and for a reasonable amount ended up getting a shift of a space, which is going to give support, which moves them also into the neutral box. So they're not going to be giving anything yet. They've got to move another space before they're of any value. They also targeted Nigeria, which is an expensive one in terms of juju, and you'll see that rebel juju went down more than it should. That should have been government juju that went down. 40, 48, and 9 is 39. They managed to get a space on that, which moves it from supporting the government to neutral, which is important because the next peace talks is going to bring the Ecomog into play with troops, in addition to Nigeria's strong value. So the role for that was worthwhile. However, the role for the government went back and did the same thing, 2 dice. They got nothing off of it. They ended up rolling a oh no, they rolled a 4 as well. They get a space off of it as well. It's 4, 5, or 6. I forgot about that. So the government actually got the space back. They got 2 in positive, but 1 negative. So Nigeria ended up going back into supporting the government. That's going to be a big help if they can get those extra troops, so they didn't want that going. However, government juju is getting fairly low, having to make expenditures to convince Nigeria over. Rebel juju is also taking a hit, but it was up to 99, so it's of some value. You know, they had more to spend, and they're willing to keep playing with the politics. Now we get the income and juju from the donors. And here, what do we have? The rebels get 6, 9, 13, 14, 15 juju. 70, 84. And this is one of the reasons, too. They know they're getting a lot back. And they get 4, 10, 13, 16 bucks. Which puts them up to 71. There's nothing down here. This is in the neutral area, but in the support of the government, we've got 5, 9, 13, 17 juju, which will help them. 40, 56, and money 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 money. And again, both sides are kind of unwilling to get their track down too low, because that's going to put them in a dangerous position. Remember, if your juju goes to 0, you lose the game. And now we'll go to the economic phase, where the cash is handed out for the territories. And again, the government's probably going to max out at 99 pretty easily. The rebels look like they're going to get there too. But then maintenance is paid, and new units are going to be bought. And we may see fairly significant forces beginning to show up on the map as we see how the money actually is not that difficult to get in this game. Okay, so both sides have actually spent fairly heavily on picking up new troops. The rebels built some stuff up in Sierra Leone, down here, and reinforced themselves here, basically putting themselves in a position where, I mean, they spent pretty much everything they could to take away troops that the AFL could use, that they had access to, as well as reinforcing here and putting themselves in a position where they can challenge on the 2 sides of the map. I've already got these and figure they're kind of stuck there. Now, for the government, they also spent a lot of cash. I mean, the rebels spent about as much as I wanted to. The government spent a lot of cash. Now, they have more that they could spend, but it feels kind of dangerous to buy too much stuff, especially since they pay maintenance on their leaders by juju as well as money, and they're low on juju. They're also low on what they can build. They could have built a small stack of like 3 units here, or they could have paid for veterans, which seem overly expensive. They ended up putting a stack here to counteract this much better attacking stack here by the NPFL, and I believe they reinforced some of their stacks. These guys, they can't build anything here except Americo-Liberians, and they're really short on them. They're hoping intervention troops will help them. Largely, they don't think they can hold, say, half the country with what they have. And if they start losing chunks of the country, the rebellion is going to get stronger, and they're not. So maybe they should have gone bigger, but it was hard to find the troops, basically, to build them up where they wanted to. They may regret this choice in a moment. And we're going into the pulse phase. And we start off with the rebels, who, remember, have these transvestites, a one-time bonus that they can use in combat, passing the clothing then to the other side. All right, well, let's start with that. Okay, so here we are. This rebel force under Nasty Plastic went in to, what is this, Barclayville, and President Doe came down. Now, he's got like 3 leaders with him, a pretty kick-ass stack, and defeated Nasty Plastic's force. He was driven back, and see a major shift in the juju here. Government's way up, almost up to where the rebels are. So you can see the government's not without some teeth, but one big stack with a lot of leaders, which is expensive to hold, is fairly potent compared to, say, some of these smaller stacks. And of course, the rebels have Taylor, who can come down to Tapita. Yes, there's a terrain advantage there, which makes it kind of less attractive to them. They may want to swing down and give up control. They're already blocked here because Tapita is cutting the country in two just as much as where they are. So if they shoot down and attack down here, they'd open things up on both sides. Taylor did just that, moved down, and he actually completely wiped out the force under Moniba. So we see the points swing the other way now. The government juju's way down, and the rebel juju's back up in its place. And it's kind of a tough situation, because now that the big stacks, the potent stacks, are out of the play, the question is anything worth attacking now? The fights are going to be close fights. It doesn't make a lot of sense for the government to attack a big stack where they have the Zoe going against them. So, on the other hand, the rebels aren't going to really be able to pull out of here, because that'll expose this. There was a retreat attempt over here, but it failed, and the force was wiped out. So now it's kind of a, what can the government do to defend itself? It's got to make a move. But whatever move it makes is going to be kind of tricky. Looks to me like maybe the safest is to shift this force down here. I don't know. Yeah, they can do that up through here and then across. Just to try to keep control down here. And then the rebels get to counter with their own movement. They can take this whole big Lofa County if they move into it with a force. Or they can contest this one. Neither one's terribly valuable, though. On the other hand, Bong County is valuable, as is Montserrato. Can they get to either of them? Well, they can come up through the north and then slide down. It's very hard to defend this territory. Once the checkpoints come in, movement won't be this free. I think we're going to slide down to the Bong mines and grab that for the extra income that it produces. And now we're on the government, and really the rebels have nothing left they can move. So the government's going to try to figure out how best to react to where the rebels have placed themselves. So Cisco successfully defended the Bong mines space. Now there was terrain there. It was a close fight, but Cisco's really good on attack and not great on defense. He had a bunch of kids with him. It looked like a valuable thing. He actually almost lost. He had to give up the transvestites in order to add another die to the attacking government forces. That allowed him to drive the government into above their limit. He was already above his. He rolled like 3 6s, I think. Now, here's the question. The government, the rebels are going to pass again. The government has to decide where they want to go. Territorially, something like this is good with their one remaining unit. But another option is to go into Bong County to try to influence the control. It makes it more likely if they end up there. So they're going to go for that because they can always build more forces. And they're going to lose their hostages there they had bought. They can always build more forces to help defend Tapita. Now, all the government forces have moved. Hey, the rebels are free to move again. Now here, and this is the danger of the whole thing, I can move this stack. I don't want to take Doe on. He's too potent. Even though I have a lot of Zoe, I think I'm going to slide down up to here. I'm going to try to hit this big stack of Gambians because I have more Zoe than he has available with his transvestites. So we'll fight this out and see what happens. Well, that ended up a defensive victory, even though there was all this Zoe, and the attacker, or the defender, rolled, what, on 2 dice he got a 9. The attacker used his Zoe to force him to roll another die. He only needed to get anything but a 1, but he got a 1, forcing it to 10, which was actually his cutoff number. So he did 10 casualties. The defender only managed to get 4, so it was 1 counter to 2 basically. It also allowed a veteran to be created over here, and it was a victorious battle. 1 counter to 2 means rebel juju goes down 1, government juju goes up 1, and now we're really at the end. The rebels have played all their forces, the government's played all its. We have to unflip units. Let's see if anything is out of supply here. These are in supply, no question. These guys don't appear to be in supply. The rebel juju, though, is high enough that, according to the version that I'm reading, they automatically unflip. This one, well, supply is tricky, right? Let's see how control is defined, because we've kind of started to decide what control of a district is. It's being the guy with the troops in it. And let's see where that fits into this. If I can find the supply rules. Here they are. Economically, controlled is not absolutely clear. I'm going to say if you're in the space with it, you can find supplies. The government back here is in supply, and they're in supply almost everywhere because they control most of the neutral spaces. This guy's in supply because he's next to Guyana, or Guinea, sorry. Government's going to be in supply everywhere, and good old nasty plastic is in supply. Okay, so now, are there disgraced leaders? Yeah, there's one up there. I think it's a 1 or a 2 switches him over. So he stays disgraced. And we have to worry about control. And let's look where it may change as opposed to where it can't change. Over here in Bami County, it's automatically going to change to a rebel-controlled territory or county. And I think this is the point, that district control isn't defined, but that it's used in places. So let's see what we get here. Each friendly controlled box at start. Oh, I should be adding those in too. Shit. So red just got +2, and the government got minus a die roll for that. So they'll lose 2. And that's just in juju. And now, let me see what the government actually got to keep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 provinces on the map they got to keep. So they get 9 juju for that. And 1, 2, 3, 4 over there, which they get for that. The rebels are going to get 2 for what they control in Monrovia. But now let's look at this one, because this one's kind of interesting. It's a... both sides need a 4 or less. And only the rebels got it. So this goes to rebel control, actually, for the entire county. And that means we get a 2-point increase for the rebels and a 6-point decrease for the government. Which drops their juju rather heavily. I don't see anywhere else that's changing hands or could change hands. So the Zoes and hostages come off the map. These actually had already disappeared in that battle. Taylor's got Zoes. I don't think there are many others. Any others? Hey, what's going on here? Okay. Alright. So I guess that's the pile for this one. And we go now to the third turn, which is late 1990. And I've used up a lot of video on this, so I'm going to load this one up.